Old Testament, what he reveals in the New Testament. It was concealed in the Old Testament. It was revealed in the New Testament. So what you see in a shadow, which is just a type in the Old Testament, now becomes a reality in the New Testament. Somebody take 3 minutes and just give God glory.
They were in a hurry. Damn.
These mutation factories, in that you're just providing the American public with some eggs that may have some of that virus strain still in them. So they still have to do a lot of studies to find out if that's a
Better
viable
idea is
solution or
to
not.
do like
Hopefully
get
something
them
can be
from
done because we
turkey,
want to get
like
those
they
eggs.
are.
Back to you.
Gotta replace the birds.
The National Weather Service has confirmed that a tornado touched down in Southern California early this morning, causing notable damage in the area. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more from Pico Rivera.
We're here in the city of Pico Rivera, where a confirmed tornado touched down early this morning around 3:15 a.m. Right now, we're on
They
Glen
need to quit
Canyon Drive,
shading
where
the
the tornado
clouds.
has hit the hardest. As you can see behind me, crews are already hard at work clearing down trees and power lines. Now, this comes as a powerful storm is sweeping through Los Angeles.
It sounded just like pretty much like a train was passing by, really loud noises. There was heavy rain as well. So you could hear everything, the intensity of it. I mean, it was really hard to sleep at night, and just waking up with all this around is pretty, concerning.
The National Weather Service confirmed that an EF0 tornado with winds up to 85 miles per hour moved through Pico Rivera and lasted approximately 2 minutes. The tornado uprooted trees and downed power lines, causing power outages in the area. It carved a mile-long path of damage, stretching about 80 yards wide at its widest point upon touching down. Tornadoes of this magnitude are rare in Southern California, making this event particularly noteworthy.
I've been living in Pico.
I guess the legalistic says the money that goes to the bank is then guaranteed and it can't be withdrawn. So that's what they're fighting. It gets very complicated about this, but ultimately, and the ultimate answer here is Congress has to vote to repeal this and stop this funding. Now, the administration can, on its own, stop what it sees, stop administering fraudulent funds. But then again, that's going to be up to judges and maybe ultimately the Supreme Court.
Now, you're right in the thick of reporting about changes at the EPA at Climate Depot. How do you see the administration's climate policies shifting going forward?
Wow. All I can say is wow, wow, wow. I was working in the United States Senate Environment Public Works Committee as senior staffer during the George W. Bush administration and then Obama's administration. And I've never seen an entire collapse and reversal of a climate agenda like I've seen in the last, 55 days, 54 days, whatever Trump's been in. And it's consequential, unlike his first term where he just sort of did some executive orders and then, meandered and did some things and then it was all overturned when Biden came in. Donald Trump's presidency is approaching this whole climate agenda as permanence. They want permanent changes. So Donald Trump pulled us out of the UN Paris Agreement, but now he's planning on submitting it to the Senate as a treaty, which would then get rejected, which would then make it hard for the next president to get back in. You'd have to sign a new treaty. We're basing all this on the 1992 Rio Earth Summit Treaty that was signed by Republican President George H.W. Bush. And now you have the EPA announcing they want to overturn the endangerment finding without getting too technical. Basically, the Obama administration and then Biden administration sought to regulate and regulated human breath or carbon dioxide. We inhale oxygen, we exhale carbon dioxide. But carbon dioxide as a pollutant under the 1990 Clean Air Act, which the Clean Air Act never even addressed. So they're going to go after the foundation for that. If they can, Trump administration can get rid of this so-called endangerment finding, this would end the scientific basis for gas-powered car bans, meat restrictions, energy restrictions, travel bans, you name it. And this would be the most consequential, long-lasting legacy in the climate and energy realm of the Trump administration. It is without precedent. I've never seen this in my decades of being in the thick of this fight. An administration reframed the narrative so effectively. They're calling it a scam, a religion, the Green New Scam. It is amazing to watch.
CO2, as you mentioned, does come out through breath, but it's also a byproduct of burning fossil fuels. Your last thoughts on that before you finish up?
Well, here's the bottom line. And ultimately, what the EPA is doing is returning to its mission of environmental protection. And it essentially has been hijacked by the climate agenda. Since 1970, the United States, because we had the first Earth Day, we've radically cleaned up our air and water quality. We've improved our forestry policies, sustainability, to use a nice green term. We are now, even according to the World Health Organization, have among the cleanest air in the world among all the countries. So the idea that we need layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of additional regulations, that's what the Trump EPA is doing. It's returning this to the states because you have state environmental protection agencies, you have local, county, you have city. We don't need all of these different layers, and we don't need this kind of strict control coming from the top.
Unfortunately saw a Department of Justice that was weaponized against Americans for their political ideologies. It was not focused on fighting violent crime and restoring law and order and public safety. So the president will be talking about his intention to restore those very basic American values to our country. And he will also be there with fentanyl families and angel moms who have lost their children at the hands of illegal migrant criminals who the previous administration allowed into our country, and also, of course, to illegal Chinese fentanyl, which, as you all know, the president feels very strongly about cracking down on drug cartels, drug trafficking, and human trafficking as well. So, and as anyone who saw President Trump and his legal team fighting back, they know how to do it. He was indicted nearly 200 times, and he's in the Oval Office now because all of the indictments, all of these injunctions have always been unconstitutional and unfair. They are led by partisan activists who are trying to usurp the will of this president, and we're not going to stand for it.
President Trump's speech at the DOJ this afternoon will be unprecedented for a president. He'll be joined by Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel. Both have been staunch allies of Trump throughout these cases, saying he has been treated unfairly by the DOJ. The president is also expected to speak on refocusing the Justice Department to crack down on drug cartels, violent crime, and illegal immigration. Up ahead, China, Russia, and Iran hold
courts, and the corruption is unbelievable. We also terminated the clearance of the Biden crime family and Joe Biden himself. He didn't deserve it. In fact, he was essentially found guilty, but they said he was incompetent, and therefore let's not find him guilty, I guess. Nobody knows what that ruling was, but I didn't want any part of it. I think I would have rather been found guilty than what they found with him. They said he didn't know what the hell he was doing, and therefore he's let him go. I said, I'd rather be convicted, Bam. I think that was not. I said, please convict me. Don't say that. I pardoned hundreds of political prisoners who had been grossly mistreated. We removed the senior FBI officials who misdirected resources to send SWAT teams after grandmothers and J6 hostages. And it was a great honor for me to fire. I will tell you this, a great honor to fire James Comey. A great, great honor. That was nothing. There was no better day. A lot of people said, oh, that's too bad you did that. And they said that's going to be, and you know what? A year later, they said that actually saved the administration because the level of corrupt things that we learned after that turned out to be that they were doing, in fact, really bad things. He was a terrible person, did terrible things and persecuted people. And all in the guise of being an angel, but he wasn't an angel. We created a brand new DOJ task force, an anti-Christian bias, and under Director Patel, we're getting the FBI agents out of the headquarters in Washington, D.C., and back on the streets in pursuit of dangerous criminals where they belong and where they want to be. And, you have that big FBI building, and it's a very big building, and they were going to build an FBI headquarters 3 hours away in Maryland, a liberal state, but that has no bearing on what I'm about to say, but we're going to stop it. Not going to let that happen. We're going to build another big FBI building right where it is, which would have been the right place because the FBI and the DOJ have to be near each other. You can't that's one thing I did learn from this persecution. The FBI and the DOJ work together. Now, in my case, they work together for bad purposes, but they do. They were always together. So how can you have one that's 3 hours away? But one thing I said to Kash, well, we're going to get a great building built. It's going to be a magnificent building. He said, sir, we don't need that kind of room. I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm just going to take a old Department of Commerce building that's about 25% the size, and that's what I need. We're going to have the best staff that you've ever seen, and that's what I need. It's in a nice location, but I don't need that big building. Why don't you just sell the site to somebody and we're going to be very happy. And they want to have far fewer people, but we also want to have them in D.C. And if for no other reason, we like having law enforcement walking the streets of our capital, because when the bad guys are out there and they see there's an FBI agent, that's the ultimate in law enforcement. And they're not going to be acting so bad. We're cleaning up our city. We're cleaning up this great capital. And we're not going to have crime, and we're not going to stand for crime. And we're going to take the graffiti down, and we're already taking the tents down, and we're working with the administration. And if the administration can't do the job, we're going to have to take it back and run it through the federal government. But we hope the administration is going to be able. So far, they've been doing very well. The mayor's been doing a good job. We said there are tents galore right opposite the State Department. They have to come down, and they took them down right away. And so far, so good. But we want to have a capital that can be the talk of the world. When Prime Minister Modi of India, when the President of France, and all of these people, the head of Prime Minister of United Kingdom, they all came to see me over the last week and a half. And when they come in, I had the route run. I didn't want to have them see tents. I didn't want to have them see graffiti. I didn't want to have them see broken barriers and potholes in the roads. And we had it looking beautiful. And we're going to do that for the city. And we're going to have a crime-free capital. When people come here, they're not going to be mugged or shot or raped. They're going to have a crime-free capital again. It's going to be cleaner and better and safer than it ever was. And it's not going to take us too long. There's a new phenomena that is taking place with these violent, vicious lawyers that we have all over. They play the ref. You know what playing the ref is? Like the great Bobby Knight basketball coach. He'd scream and scream at the ref. He'd scream. I watched him. By the way, I love Bobby Knight because he endorsed me. And having Bobby Knight's endorsement in Indiana was an extremely good thing. A friend of mine said I was running in Indiana at the time. This was early on, 2016. And I was doing great. But friend came up and said, "You know Bobby Knight?" I said, "No, I don't, but I hear he was a tough cookie." He said, "He's not only tough, he was beyond tough, but he's the most popular guy you can imagine." It turned out he wanted to endorse me. He called me about 2 years before. He said, "Sir, I'd like to endorse you." I said, "Is this really Bobby Knight?" I said, "It's me." I could tell it was Bobby Knight. He had been known for throwing the chair across the court and slapping a player. Can't do things like that, right? And the man that came in fired him. It was a new administrator for the Galaxy. That guy didn't last very long. They were like 14-0, and they fired Coach Knight. That was not good, but he had a little chip in his shoulder. But he loved Trump, and he came in and he said, "I'd love to endorse you." He said, "If you ever run, please call me." So he said, "You know Bobby Knight?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but he called me."
I have a perfect example of Medicaid and Medicare fraud. Fella in an apartment above me has 2 oxygen machines. One came from the hospital, the other came from Durable Medical Equipment. He had a bed. They sent him out one of these adjustable beds, and somebody's supposed to come by every day and take care of his leg, and it's not happening. He hasn't had anybody there. I think one person came by. "Oh, you haven't got what I need." She ain't showed up since. Durable Medical Equipment. Another oxygen machine, which came from the hospital. Durable Medical Equipment. And he's supposed to be getting somebody coming by and seeing him every day and taking care of his leg. They haven't been here since one person came by, and that's it.